the vodka industry was like treating the consumers like idiots. Not all of them, but a lot, like taller bottles, more expensive, but the same stuff inside, and no different story basically, but higher prices.
Right.
So you felt like an idiot buying expensive vodka because they were great bourbons, or you would know why it were more expensive. But with vodka, it like filtered through diamonds. That's one of the most stupid things to filter stuff through, because it doesn't give any taste at all.
Welcome to Uprising. Each episode looks inside what it takes to lead the most dynamic and successful cultural movements. Some of them in the business world, some in the social realm, some in politics, and some in between, to see why people start uprisings. What gives those initiatives momentum and keeps them going? And most important, what lessons can you learn from these movements and how to apply them to your business and even personal life? Let's explore the secret to sparking movements that move people into action.
Passionate ideas.
Controversial ideas.
Uprising ideas.
The power is now in the hands of anyone.
To start a cultural movement.
Your movement.
To
move the world.
Today's Uprising Pod is brought to you by warbyparker.com. Get a free 5-day home try-on at www.warbyparkertrial.com/uprising. 5 pairs, 5 days, 100% free.
Hi, this is Scott Goodson, and you are joining us for the Uprising podcast. Today, we are going to look at a huge movement that is taking this country by storm. I had the pleasure of working with Jim Beam over the last 8 or 9 years, and we noticed something many years ago that was just starting. And I had the pleasure back then, it's probably about 10 years ago, of meeting someone by the name of Ralph Lorenzio, who founded one of the first small batch bourbons in New York State and also in the United States. And I think when that first came out, everyone was kind of scratching their heads, sort of saying, small batch spirits, a New York bourbon. No one had heard of such a thing. Why would anyone want to go into that business? Probably the most regulated, highly taxed, bureaucratic in the world. But today, he and an army of disruptive brands have created a massive movement as craft spirits have emerged as one of the greatest successes. There are like more than 800 craft spirit producers operating in the United States. And according to the American Craft Spirits Association, that number expects to go a lot higher. The industry is growing on a trajectory that's quite similar to the craft beer market 10 years earlier. And this spirits category has sales that are projected to exceed $50 billion by 2020. In the middle of all this, in a country on the northern periphery of Europe, we're a small group of guys that said, hold on a second, there's something really cool about this momentum. And one of the co-founders of Small Batch Vodka, his name is Kalle Söderqvist, is joining us today from Stockholm, Sweden. Welcome to the show, Kalle.
Thanks. Hi.
So you and your team decided to come out swinging like Vikings, and you started in Sweden, like your mythological ancestors, but you didn't stop there. You decided to go far and wide. Why?
But the funny is that we don't even have the Our Vodka here in Sweden. We only have it in Berlin, London, Amsterdam in Europe, and then we have it in Detroit, Los Angeles, and soon Houston. We used to have Seattle, and soon also Houston, Miami as well. So we don't have a distillery in Sweden or Stockholm.
Wow, and you have a distillery in these different places that you just talked about?
Yeah.
So what motivated you to actually just start this Our Vodka?
Oh, it was a bunch of things. Me and the other guys at Great Works had been working with Absolut for, I don't know, all in all together almost like 10 years for different kinds of stuff, digital mostly. And then I met with this girl called Åsa Kopp. She was head of innovations at Absolut at that point, I think. And she just got a job and I envied her job and said, oh, I would like to have a job because I have a history of like being a bartender for 10 years before that. So I've been working with alcohol all my life. Then she got a job with innovations of alcohol that I've been thinking of or working with for like 20 years. So we had a lunch and she pitched an idea of me. She asked me, why can't there are no local and global brands? Why is that? Because the local trends, as you talked about earlier when you introduced this episode or whatever it is, you said that like the small batch.
The Uprising podcast. Haven't you heard of it? It's all over Sweden.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's
part of the podcast movement. You know, we drink vodka
fantastic.
and we talk about movements.
That was a long story short. She pitched it to me and I got super excited. So I ran back and told my guys. Some of them were super excited or as excited as me. And the day after, we started working on this. And this is like 5-6 years ago. And now that is Our Vodka.
You know, it's funny. Here in the U.S., I think one of the biggest spirits brands in the whole country is a brand called, that no one's ever heard about. Well, I shouldn't say no one, but a lot of people, called New Amsterdam Vodka. Yeah. I think it's like the number, at least top 5 largest selling vodka. And it's only about 5 years old.
It was super fast growing.
Super fast growing. And it's kind of dominated the market you just talked about. People that have said, hey, hold on a second, I don't want to pay, you know, premium prices. I want a premium vodka for moderate prices.
They took another route, probably a simpler route than building micro distilleries in all of these cities that we've been doing. It's super hard and tough. And if we knew back then how hard it would be to do this, I don't think we would have.
That's a great point. So at what point did you decide to go whole, as we say over here, whole hog, to go full in? Like, so Åsa came in, gave you this idea, and then you said you got your friends together. You obviously came up with the name in like, how long did that take? Was that a long?
Oh, forever.
Forever.
The name, it was called Local Vodka from the beginning, but then we realized we couldn't register that, so it was super tough. And then it was actually a lawyer who said no to a bunch of names, saying, "Why don't you call it Our Vodka?"
The lawyer came up with the name?
Yeah. The one that said no to all the other names came up with the name. We said, yes, can we do that? And he said, yeah, you can. Okay, fantastic. And then we took it. And it was great because it means like it's ours, but also the guys that run the vodka and it's partner in the cities. So it's ours together kind of. So it's, and it's the city's vodka. So that we loved it. And then, so at the end it took forever, but at the end it took 3 minutes to nail it.
So Swedes are, I mean, obviously very intelligent, worldly, sensitive people. But how do you feel about totally trashing, you know, the grandfather of the industry? I mean, isn't Absolut obviously Swedish, and don't they represent everything you're trying to fight against?
Both yes or no, but I would say no because Absolut is probably the biggest craft brand in the world because it's made in one place by this guy, and it's made by a bunch of people in Aarhus. It's super small, it's familiar, it's the wheat and the water, everything is from that place. So it's really a craft brand in that way. So I think that's the heritage of L.O. Smith doing stuff differently. And he was doing weird stuff back like 100 years ago.
Well, what kind of weird stuff was he doing?
But he was super entrepreneurial. I think he was one of the first that came up with the idea to like pay bars to carry his product because it was a battle between all the brands at that point. Now you like contribute with marketing money or discounts in ahead or whatever it's called. But back then he was super entrepreneurial on how he did stuff, moved his distillery to an island and stuff like that. And then, I don't know, 80 years later, a couple of guys started doing it in Aarhus again.
That's interesting. And, you know, a lot of people that create brands and movements and disruptive ideas, they have heroes that they look to. Is he that for you, or are there other people or other individuals in Sweden that you say, wow, that person was super inspiring in terms of how they built a brand or how they went to the world?
I don't know. When we started this, we always said, and this is maybe kind of small, but at that point, there was a jeans brand called Cheap Mondays.
Yeah, I like
And they,
that brand. I actually have a pair somewhere.
yeah, I think H&M bought them later. But
Okay.
at that point, I think it's the same thing as there at that point was with vodka. Was maybe a couple of years earlier, but you bought designer jeans for like, I don't know, 200, $300, and it was the same kind of jeans, just another brand. That he said, why the fuck should you pay so much money for a pair of jeans? Why can't you buy a cheap, cool pair of jeans instead? So we are kind of like, you don't have to pay that much money to look good. So he made super cheap, super cool jeans. Like also like doing the opposite, kind of sig when everybody sags. That's old stuff, I know, but we felt like idiots paying so much or seeing how the vodka industry developed. So we would our idea was to do like cheap Monday vodka kind of.
No, it's cool.
But then and at the end, so the fantasy or the idea from the beginning was to be super cool or relevant in a local level, but still have this global dream, but to be cheap. But then also super naive idea. Then we realized producing stuff locally and build distilleries and do it to a high quality costs. So it's actually ended up being kind of expensive because otherwise we wouldn't have a business. But that was like the starting point, at least, with Cheap Monday.
It's a really, 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 really great and important point. So that idea, right, is a huge movement idea. And it actually ties to other brands in Scandinavia, like you mentioned, H&M, and also IKEA. And basically, these brands believed in the democratization of style or taste or what have you. They brought to the world a better distribution or a better way of doing things, and as a result, products were less expensive, but they were better quality. And that's kind of in the same way that they became huge, massive global brands. Nobody's really done it in the spirit space, so it's really an interesting base for you guys as you take on the vodka brands, and not only take on the vodka brands, but also respond to consumer desire and changes in what they're looking for from their brands.
Yeah, we would like to think that. And we thought also that we would like to charge a brand with something that you actually would like to talk about. Like the guys that started the first distillery we built in Berlin with Jon and Pauline, a German couple, or Jon is actually Danish, but lived there for 10 years. We started the brand with them. And actually also like we also realized that we can't be guys from Sweden doing a local brand in Berlin. It needs to be someone from Berlin who's active in that cultural scene or whatever you would like to call it. So that's also kind of important to understand that it is a vodka made in Berlin from Berlin. We just help out to make it possible, kind of, and partners with guys, like real partners, not ambassadors. That was a tough pitch, though, but.
Why was it tough?
But to tell Pernod Ricard that they have to share their company with someone else and their money, it's a scary thing. It hasn't been done in Pernod Ricard before. Telling big industry that they need to share stuff.
Yeah. But that's where I think they benefit from you, right? Because they are a traditional French-based company, been doing things for 100 years. Scandinavia is quite the opposite. It's sort of do more with less, be innovative, overcome obstacles, find solutions, do it, like you call it, the naive way, but nevertheless, it's an innovative way. That's all really, a recipe for success. So that's great that you did that.
For you, the listeners of Scott Goodson's Uprising Pod, Warby Parker is offering a free 5-day home try-on to give you the opportunity to check out their glasses. To get your home try-on today, go to warbyparkertrial.com/uprising. Again, that's warbyparkertrial.com/uprising for your free 5-day home try-on.
Being naive, super important, because if you know all the stuff or the hard work or the trouble you've been, you would never do it. So I think that's a super important part of doing innovative stuff.
The naivete movement. No, it's true. I think it's accurate, right? If your brain is focusing on all the potential issues, you become fearful. But if you are somewhat naive, you become fearless, and therefore you make those bold moves, which is super cool. Makes the world change. That's wonderful. And to your point, the spirits world is pretty traditional. I worked in it for 8 years, as I mentioned, with Jim Beam, building it around the world. And it's a pretty traditional industry, And so you guys are bringing not only a new brand to the world, but a whole new way of thinking about the industry. That's super cool. That's the future, I guess. That's why Pernod is obviously interested in partnering with you guys.
But I think that, so we always try to think that there has to be another way of doing it. It's always been done like this, but it has to be another way. And a lot of times we realize, but they've been doing it for 100 years, so this is a good way. We've been trying a lot of other ways, but every now and then we find other ways of doing traditional stuff. So we have that naivety, or whatever it's called, still in the DNA of the brand. Like there has to be another way, kind of thinking.
Well, it's like that. I mean, and also, Swedes have always done that in all sorts of places. You guys, no one knows about this, but I think it's true that Ericsson, the Swedish tech company, invented the mobile phone. Everyone thinks it was like Mr. Motorola, but it wasn't. Or Apple, and Swedes have obviously been doing lots of things. Actually, my niece is part of a pretty successful band in Sweden called Peter, Bjorn, and John, or at least she just did the global tour with them. And, so much music in the world is influenced by Sweden. Here. Yeah, it's super cool. And her name is Freya Drakenberg, just so you know.
Mm-hmm, cool. But that's why you're so good in pronouncing Swedish names, then.
Yeah, I am. My wife is Swedish.
Oh, cool. Because I thought about that when you said my name, Kalle Söderqvist. It was like the best American pronunciation of my name ever.
Actually, I just want to pause for a moment to just remind everyone who's listening that you're listening to the Uprising podcast with Scott Goodson. And today we are talking with Kalle Söderqvist, the co-founder of Our Vodka, the best tasting vodka coming out of Sweden in, decades? Does it taste good?
Oh, it is great, but I think it's really good. But it's hard to make vodka, because if you make something else, you can always hide the taste with like oak or sugar or whatever. But there's nothing to hide behind, kind of, when it comes to vodka, because if it needs to be smooth and tasteless, so you can't kind of hide bad stuff. So it's kind of easy to taste when a vodka is good.
I remember reading about Absolute Vodka years ago, and they said that one of the reasons why it was successful was because it actually was filtered 7 times or something like that. And when you taste it, you really do feel like it has that sort of filtration. What's your secret?
Our secret is the local aspect, I would say, and that we have a guy called Vincent, that is the guy that built everything, the engineer, and then we have Nicola, the sensory expert, that is super harsh, great guys from France, that is like geniuses in doing vodka. So they help us source the ingredients and to build the distillery so it makes great stuff. That's in short. But I would also say that the recipe that they made is fantastic, and it's the same recipe, but it's made by different local ingredients. So if you bake a bread, if I have a recipe in Sweden, I bake it from Swedish flour or and yeast and stuff, and I do the exact same thing in New York, it will taste a bit different because the ovens are different, the wheat is different, the water is different. So it tastes a bit different, but made by the same recipe. So that is the secret sauce kind of to our vodka, that it's made the same way, the same recipe, but it always tastes a bit different.
So how does the Detroit, do you have a distillery in Detroit?
Yeah.
How does that taste?
It's also great. It's a bit of a more punch in it, because it's in Europe it's 37.5% alcohol, and it's 40 in the US and in Detroit, and the base in Detroit is corn, and for instance in Berlin it's wheat. Right. So it's a bit different, but I think it's still great. It's a different kind of character. So if you have them all side by side, you can really taste the difference, but you can also feel that they are siblings.
So if you look at the consumer for a moment, the people actually drinking vodka, it's obviously they've changed a lot, and part of your success is that you have understood that, and you have built a story and a brand and a movement that reflects that, right? So you've got these consumers who are, I would say to some extent anti-flash. They're kind of like the Mark Zuckerbergs in a way. They're wearing kind of sweatpants, or they're looking for sort of less flash and more
dress down.
dressed down, easy access. It's actually, I think one of the reasons why Jim Beam was so successful was because they were like the unpretentious brown spirit against Johnny Walker, which was this, super pretentious brand on a global basis. And everybody, all the young people today are looking for that easy access brand rather than the pomposity and the pretentiousness that came with all those other brands from years ago. And so,
Yeah.
in your experience with your consumers, what do you think are some of the values that they, hold dear?
The whole thing started that we thought consumers, and we ourselves as well, was tired to be lied to. So transparency is one of the most important things when we started this. I think this was nailed the first day. We would never lie to our consumers. We would be transparent on what we do, and we will do it for real. And if we just stick to that, we said, I remember it like the first day, if we only stick to that, we're good. So we are trying to, and we are never lying. We have made mistakes, like in the beginning of Berlin, we didn't write Pernod Ricard on the back of the bottle because we didn't think we have to. But then some consumers said, "Oh fuck, you're lying to us. You're like you're absolutely trying to like buy us with some cool local stuff." And they said, "Oops, sorry." So we put it on the label again. So we had some mistake. We were trying never to lie, always be transparent and tell it like it is.
Okay.
And I think consumers can't trust brands anymore, kind of.
They don't like naughty brands. They only like nice brands. If you're naughty, they don't like you. So you were a little naughty and then you became nice again.
Yeah, exactly. We think that consumer needs to be able to trust the brand, that what they say is true. And I think that trust was kind of gone for a while. And I think it's on the way back because the brands you like is the ones you can trust, at least for me.
Transparency, trust. Are there other values you think define?
No bullshit. I think we talked about for a while. To not have, I think, tell it like it is, straightforward. I think that was kind of important, and it still is.
Yeah, I think that's right on the money,
Yeah.
as we say here. Those are important values. Do you remember when you launched the company, when you made your first sale? I mean, obviously you created Our Vodka. It was super delicious. And then you started. Did you have a lineup at the door when you first started? Did it,
We tried for, I think it took 11 months to convince Pernod Ricard to put money behind this, to make a pilot in Berlin. So and then we were super happy. And we got the money to build in Berlin, and then super scared, of course, because then we had to actually build a distillery. No one of us have ever built a distillery before, so we didn't know what we were doing. It was, of course, we were still learning, but back then we didn't have a clue. So then we find Vincent to help us out. So then we built Berlin, and then 4 weeks in. So when we opened Berlin, we went to Berlin like I think 35 times in a year to find those people, find a place to be, learn about the city. Trying to know what we were doing, or try to act that we were knowing what we were doing. And so then we went to this fantastic, super cool store called Voo Store, that it's kind of known in the world as a lifestyle fashion, super cool Berlin store. And then when we went there, we said, "Hey guys, think if we one day could be sold in this store." And me, Åsa, and Matthias went there and we talked about it and said, "Oh, that would be a dream. Yeah. Okay, let's go." And then we moved on. And the first store that bought Our Vodka from the distillery when we were open was Voo Store. And we were super happy, almost cried. We were so emotional at that time, worked so hard for so long. And then the dream buyer or customer bought a box. Or a case.
Do you remember the first customer that did that? Do you have a picture of that person in your office?
No, but it was Voo Store that placed the first order.
Okay, that's cool.
So that's cool. Actually true. But we don't have that picture, no. But I have a picture of the first Our Vodka bottle ever made somewhere.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I got to get a copy of that. Put it on our website. So, launching a vodka is not easy, especially in the United States, where I mentioned earlier, there's lots of regulations and stuff. So did you have any bureaucratic, spider webs sticking to you when you guys wanted to run ahead and start doing everything you guys did?
there's so much and still so much. Because we thought like opening a distillery, this is also the naive part that we talked about earlier, about
Yep.
opening a distillery in the US. When we opened one, we will learn, and then we open two, and the third one, we will know exactly what we're doing. It will be super fast. But we didn't realize that every state is a super complex country in itself. So it's actually like starting over again with every state. So every state is different. And luckily, I don't do that. We have a legal department that is fantastic, that helps us out, and the financial department that helps out, because otherwise we would have been dead long time ago.
So when you came here to the U.S., can you tell me, like, were there any sort of stories you can talk about?
Oh yeah. We thought, because we didn't want to do New York first, because that's the like the expected city to go to, and we didn't want LA either, because that's also super expected. So and back then it was Detroit had a lot of trouble back then. We said, wow, let's go to Detroit then. That sounds cool. But at the same time, we started looking into being in New York. So we wanted to be in New York, and we wanted to be in Manhattan, because we wanted to be able to have our New York on the label. We thought we want to be in New York, not Jersey or something like that, because then it has to be our Jersey, right? So we wanted to be. Then we figured out that if we would be able to do this, we will be, and now we will be, the first distillery on Manhattan since Prohibition, or the first legal distillery on Manhattan since Prohibition. And that we will be. But to get there, I think we have all the documents signed now, but to get there, I think it took 3.5 years, and still not open. We are in 3.5 years now, and we'll be on the fourth probably before we open. And I think we have more than 100 physical meetings with the fire department.
Wow.
So it's been, and for Vincent, he knows the fire code of New York City better than the fire guys in New York City by now.
Right.
So, and it's been for them. I haven't been doing this, but for them it's been a nightmare. But it's fantastic to be the first distiller in Manhattan, and it's worth it.
There was the founder of Hudson Valley Whiskey,
Yeah.
bourbon. He had a still that they built in their location up in upstate New York, and when they were starting to create their own gin, the distillery exploded. It was like a nuclear bomb. The whole thing just went up, and so I think to the credit of the fire department, I think it is a pretty dangerous thing. So I understand that side of it, but as an entrepreneur, it can be incredibly frustrating.
But I think it's good, and it's I think in Berlin it's the most safe distillery in Berlin. I would say Germany, and then Vincent will get nervous, but it's super safe, and we have the most strict code of any company that build distilleries in the world. And of course it's good that they have that. And after 9/11, you don't want to build more weird stuff that can blow up in Manhattan.
No.
So it's of course a good thing,
Right.
but it's also tough.
Yeah.
And I understand for cities it's scary, because that hasn't been done before, and we want to build a distillery in city center. We don't want to be in the outskirts of a city, because then we can't put the name on the bottle. It feels, coming back to lying, being in Brooklyn and saying our New York, or being in Jersey and saying our New York, it isn't right? So that's not. So we need to be also, again, not lying to consumers. If we're in New York, we need to be in Manhattan.
You got to be in the Bronx, so it's like the really tough guy vodka.
We tried to do it in Harlem, but it was so tough to find a place to build it in, because you have to be 300 feet from a school or a church. In Harlem, there's so many churches, so we couldn't find a spot to be in.
That's amazing. Well, but you eventually found a spot.
Yeah, I think it's 26 and 7 or something down.
Oh my God, that's like right near my office.
Really?
That's near Madison Square Park. Yeah, that's where I'm calling right now. Yeah, maybe I can have access to the vodka right here.
It's just beside like Swedish Institute, that is like a gym or something like that.
Okay, yeah, it's right around the corner from me. I'm overlooking Madison Square Park as we speak.
What is it called? Garment District?
No, 26th is it's kind of it's called the Flatiron District, because we're right near the Flatiron building.
Exactly.
So it is it's kind of the new hot area in New York City.
Yeah, we know.
Yeah. So you're in the right place, just so you know.
That's great.
So I guess final question for you, Kalle. Do you want to leave a legacy with this brand? Like, what would you like people to talk about, in, I don't know, 10 years, 20 years, when they think about Our Vodka? What will it have done to the world?
I don't know. I think maybe to think about that, to think that you don't have to do like it's been done before. Try other ways. It would be fun to be that reference in the future. Remember when Our Vodka did this? They said like they challenged the status quo or challenged how things been done. I think that would be interesting or fun to be mentioned as a challenger or someone that goes their own way. I think that would be nice.
That's great. No, I think that's a wonderful legacy to have. Making things better, challenging the status quo. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, this has been super interesting, and I wanted to wish you the best of luck to you and your co-founders. Where can I get my hands on a bottle of Our Vodka?
I'll fix it for you. I'll send one to. I'll try to send because we have our office in New York. Okay. So I'll see if I can find LA or Detroit for you, and then I'll invite you to the opening in New York in a couple of months.
Okay, but is there? So let me rephrase that question. So I am Joe Consumer on the street, and I've heard this podcast, and I want to get my hands on Our Vodka. Where can I get my hands on Our Vodka?
If you're in LA, you go to the distillery. You can find it in stores, in Detroit in stores, or in Berlin in stores. But it's not really sold outside the state that it's made, or the city.
In New York City, can I get it yet or not? Not yet.
Not yet.
Got it. Okay. Well, that makes me even more anxious to get my hands on it. So as soon as it gets launched, you have to send me an email or something so they can try it out.
You will not.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time. And I know it's late in Sweden.
Not that late. 5 o'clock. It's beer o'clock or vodka o'clock.
Vodka o'clock, yeah. I actually have another question for you. Do you know that you can make vodka out of pretty much anything, like tree bark? Things like that.
There is a vodka made of potatoes, and I think there's vodka made of rice, and like almost everything. But
have you ever tried tree bark?
No, thanks for the idea. I'll pitch that when we record.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Well, thank you, Kalle. It's been super fun. Really interesting to hear about your story, and we wish you the best of luck.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining our Uprising today and listening to our show. If you missed the show, or if you want to find out more about who was on, or if you want to learn more about how to create your own Uprising, please go to uprisingmovements.com. You can also download this Uprising program from iTunes. Uprising was produced by Nicola Keneally and Adam Helen, with special help from Melanie Boardman, Karin Drachenberg, Philippa Freeman, Brianna Campbell, Fashad Faroudi, Mark Bruzy, Will Issam, James Politi, and Jonathan Weeks. My name is Scott Goodson, and you've been listening to Uprising. What we can learn about movements and uprisings that are shaping our world in business, in society, and in between. For more on cultural movements and movement marketing, be sure to pick up a copy of the best-selling book Uprising, How to Build a Brand and Change the World by Sparking Cultural Movements, available on Amazon.com. Music for Uprising composed by Charles Duchateau.